Well, hello everybody. Here we are again. We're going to take a look at Mr. P-Diddy, and we're going to analyze a little bit of what's going on. I hope that this will be not just entertaining, but also be very insightful, give you some things to think about. I think that, well, the first question is that, did P. Diddy really do that? Is P. Diddy guilty? And I think if you take a look at the headlines in the news and all of the various sources of things going on, you can pretty well ascertain that P. Diddy is not exactly somebody you'd want to bring home to meet your daughter, or in any regards, even your son. I think that P. Diddy is a dark character. I think that because of what we're shown and what others actually claim, people who have enjoyed his presence and his parties, that's what gets me. But I think there's more going on behind the scenes in this whole thing than what really meets the eye. And I've been analyzing, not in real depth. I have not been analyzing this like in huge. This is not earth-shattering for me, but it's interesting in the sense that if you take a look at what's going on outside of the peripheral of P. Diddy, I think that it paints a picture that is really unmistakable. And that's what I want to get into, and that's what I want to focus on. So that's what I'm going to try to show you here in a little bit. But we're going to do both. We're going to look at P. Diddy. We're going to look at the characteristics of what is taking place. And then we're going to ask the question that needs to be asked. And that question to me is, why now? You can't tell me that the United States government and the Justice Department waited until right now, knowing who he was and all of the nasty stuff that he has been involved in. They're waiting right now to go after him. To me, that's extremely suspect in and of itself. And yes, you can give the argument that they are have been spending their time gathering evidence. But I think there's something even more involved in this, and that's what I want to take a look at today. To start off with, what I want to do is I'm going to draw from Redacted. And I'm not saying that I trust Clayton and Natalie 100%. I'm not saying that they're the end-all news source. I'm not saying that at all. But they do bring out good points, and what they do is give, just like some of the others, they give you a point of reference to, if you really want to know the truth, to go find it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play some clips, and then I'm going to expand it. We're going to play some clips of P. Diddy and their analysis, but we're also going to take a look at what else is going on in this landscape of the purveyance of what P. Diddy's being charged for. And I want you to ask yourself a question. What does this look like in reference to recent history. Stop and think about who else went down for very similar charges. And we're going to get into that. That's, in essence, where we're going. So did P-Diddy do that? Let's listen to what Clayton and Natalie have to say from Redacted.
We won't be having tonight when our children get home. We're going to talk about the Diddy story. I think I should put a disclaimer on this. I didn't want to do it, and Clayton made me do this story. So we're going to do it, and we're going to take a look at it, and it's yucky, you guys. So you got to put on your big boy pants to see this stuff. I'm ready for further questions of what's left out, what the government knows and doesn't know, but we're going to go through it. So here we go. Sean Diddy Combs was arrested by Homeland Security agents at a New York City hotel on Monday, and the indictment was unsealed this morning. Today, that's Tuesday. And you guys, this stuff is dark and it runs deep, as in every song you may have ever liked in your life that you listen to on the radio may be connected to a demonic sex ring. Yes. So brace yourself. This is the worst case scenario. Okay.
Okay. So right away, let's just stop and think about what Natalie just said, and stop and think about other artists who basically write and sing and perform music and songs and create movies, not just music, but movies around things that go on. Is there any other artists that come to mind? Is there any other controversial artists that come to mind right now? Just a question. I mean, it really begs the question, and this is going to come up later in this video that I'm putting out right now, because there's something to it. There is something to it. And I think that if you are a person that cares about the foundation of your country and the foundation of your family, and not just your own personal gratification and taste in music or whatever you want to say it is, entertainment, then you really need to pay attention and ask the right questions. Let's continue on.
Okay.
You're upset about this, that maybe there's music that's not connected to this. You think that your taste is not engineered?
I listen to a lot of 80s music. I listen to a lot of jazz, so hopefully there's not crazy.
Okay,
Diddy
I mean, I like a
there.
lot of polka. Hopefully there's no demonic polka rings, but we'll see. That's actually true.
I love Pink Floyd. I hope they're not associated with this in any way.
Okay, well, we're going to see. So brace yourself. The government has thrown the book at Diddy for prostitution, coercion, enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotic offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. All of that is listed in this indictment. Here's what it looks like if you want to take a look for yourself, so you know I'm not making anything up. Now, not listed here is anything related to minors, and we're going to get to that in a second. Worth mentioning, though, that this is what the government alleges. This is what they think they can successfully prosecute. They present evidence to a grand jury, and the grand jury decides if they can arrest this person and move the case forward. Now, Combs will have the chance to defend himself, and his lawyer says that he's innocent of all of this. So if he fights this and says, I didn't do it, the government will say, well, here's a big steaming plate of evidence. And so will he actually do that? The lawyer says he will fight like hell to get his client released on bail. That's not likely, but we'll see. I mean, it would be a bajillion dollars. I would think they've already taken his passport. The government says they have copious amounts of evidence since their extensive raid on his properties and his electronics. Here is prosecutor Damian Williams summarizing that evidence.
During those searches, agents seized evidence of the crimes charged in this indictment. They seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 defaced AR-15s and a large capacity drum magazine.
First of all, I want to say They're going to bring the guns into it. Whether P. Diddy is legal with this stuff, because this stuff is legal in most states other than communist, flat out blatant communist states, this stuff's legal. So guess what? I really don't give a rip. But they're going to bring it into it just like they did with the Trump assassination, saying that this bonkers dude that they own, and we're going to get into that in the next video, that they own was a felon and had weapons of mass destruction, which wound up being a rifle. So they're gonna pull that in. Let's just admit that right now.
They also seized evidence of the freak-offs, electronic devices that contain images and videos of the freak-offs with multiple victims. And they seized cases and cases of the kinds of personal lubricant and baby oil that Combs' staff allegedly used to stock hotel rooms for the freak-offs, more than 1,000 bottles altogether. Here are some of the items that we recovered during the searches. As you can see here, this is a drum magazine, large capacity, and it contains, I believe, 59 rounds.
So
I mentioned as well, we recovered 3 AR-15s. This is a close-up shot of one of the AR-15s, and you can see right here, the serial number has been thoroughly defaced.
So let's understand this. You know, that is not an AR-15. That is what is called a lower. An AR-15 lower houses the trigger mechanism and the well for the magazine. And it is, in fact, what you will register, which is why he's calling this an AR-15. Just so you understand, when you're not looking, you know, take a look here. You're not looking right here. You're not looking at a full-blown AR-15. You would have to put that. This here is the same thing as this, and you'd have to put this on this and put this or this into this to equal a completed functioning AR-15 rifle. But what they do is, because this houses the trigger mechanism, which I don't see the trigger there, and I certainly don't see it here, and this is not, to be frankly honest, this is not the items that they are showing us. These are photographs of anything. They could have gotten this stuff anywhere. And to be frankly honest, I bring that into question. Number one. Number two, as of right now, I don't see anything in those photographs, in these photographs, that would tell me that anything there is at all illegal. The only illegal thing would be is that if he bought a mass-produced, from a legitimate firearm, a mass-produced lower that had a serial number that was tied to a legitimate or illegitimate purchase of said lower, and he defaced that lower and took the serial numbers off, then we've got a problem. But it is legal to buy these lowers. Oh, let me get my right mouse. It is legal to buy these lowers, which are called blanks. They're either finished or unfinished. Lowers called blanks. I'll call it an unfinished lower. They do need serial numbers, but they don't need to be logged until you complete them. You can buy as many lowers as you want to. You can create out of blanks. That is the hunk of metal. If you had the hunk of metal and you took a milling machine and milled it out for yourself, it doesn't need a serial number, and it is completely legal. if you do that and you sell it, it needs a serial number. And it needs to be engraved on the side of that lower that you create, and it needs to be registered as a for sale item. And to be frankly honest, you then need a manufacturer's license, as far as I know. But in any case, if this dude in the black suit was to say, these are what we confiscated and show me the real thing, if they were to bring out the lowers, the physical lowers, and they were to bring out the physical barrels, and they'd bring out the physical magazines, then I would say, okay, you could still get those from anywhere. But the fact of the matter is, maybe it's because I just don't trust them. And I'm going to tell you why. We're going to get into that in a little bit here. Let's continue on.
Another picture of more ammunition and parts of 2 AR-15s right there.
So people in the chat are saying freak off. What did he say? Freak off?
Oh yeah.
So
okay.
that's in the indictment.
I'm going to show you what that is right now.
At first, I heard free Goths, and I was like, is that like Visigoths or the I was like literally thinking like Germanic tribes of medieval, but okay, freak off.
Yeah, freak offs. And
freak offs. Okay, here we go. Let's let him explain it. You don't need to. The prosecutor does a pretty good job. Go ahead.
As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs, and that Combs hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair. On one occasion in March of 2016, that conduct was captured on video and later reported in the media. Specifically, Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a victim in a Los Angeles hotel when the victim was attempting to flee.
So let's just do some real quick math. He said in 2016. This is 2024. So if you take 1 away from 2, add it to 14, you get 8. So we're talking 8 years ago. So this investigation has been going on for 8 years, at least. Or has it? And they're just now bringing this to the table. Or did they start an investigation way later and then start digging backwards and forwards at the same time? I don't know, but the point of the matter is, here we are at the table.
As alleged, these assaults often resulted in injuries to the victims, which took days or weeks to heal. In addition to the violence, the indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the freak-offs. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims. And the indictment alleges that he maintained control over the victims in several ways, including by giving them drugs, by giving and threatening to take away financial support or housing, by promising them career opportunities, by monitoring their whereabouts, and even by dictating their physical appearance. Because of all of this, the indictment alleges that the victims did not believe they could refuse Combs without risking their security or facing more abuse. The indictment also alleges other acts of violence undertaken by Combs and others, including violence against witnesses to his abuse, kidnapping, and arson.
Okay. So
The least of it seems to be the guns. Like, who cares about the guns at this point?
it was just the method to which he kept all that going. I mean, when you have so many sex orgy parties that you have a name for them, like, do you put that in your calendar? Like, hey, I'm going to need to clear a few days for a freak off. Can you please? And it was so organized that he had his staff setting it up.
Yes.
Like, I need all the baby oil.
Well, that's
and
my
the
thing. Who
wipes.
on his staff is like in charge of the cases of baby oil?
And then they would go in and clean it up afterwards. Now, it was such an exertion for these
Victims.
victims that they were just, I guess, continually graping without a G, that they.
Well, let's ask the question. I want to ask the question again. What does this sound like? Who does this sound like? Who in the last 5 years or so do we remember having these massive, massive ordeals where people were flown, people and children, young women, young boys, and people were flown to an island that was well maintained for the purpose of having all kinds of this type of behavior? I'm just asking these are the questions that need to be asked. This is one of the questions that needs to be asked. Let's continue on.
Had to have IVs. In fact, here's what the government says is that after these freak-offs, Combs and the victims typically received IV fluids to recover from the physical exertion and drug use. So not only did they have all this set up, they had a freak-off kit that included IV for Combs himself because it was such an Olympic event. It's wild. Now, the government says that they have seen this for themselves. We heard about these in other court cases, but the government says they've seen it based on what they seized in the raids. Now, as a taxpayer, this is when we need to acknowledge that we appreciate law enforcement because they watched this and they took action. So at least we can give credit where credit is due. They say, again, that this is the stuff of nightmares. But important question is, how long have they known? Because this has been going on allegedly since at least 2008. Someone in the chat brings up a good point. Remember when J-Lo says she didn't know that he was involved in gang activity, but she was in and around a shooting when she was dating him in the 1999 and 2001 to 2001, I believe. So some people knew he was involved in some bad stuff for a very long time. Who, why, and who was kept from it? Now, interestingly enough, he was arrested on September 15th, 2024. 1 year ago, September 15th, 2023, he was in New York City getting the key to the city from Mayor Adams. Watch this.
He already has the keys to some pretty exclusive places, and now Sean Diddy Combs can add New York City to that list. It's Diddy Day in the city. Videos have been playing on the Jumbotron for TSX Broadway, and the crowd waited. Then around 11:30, the doors opened for the mayor and the artist.
The bad boy of entertainment is getting the key to the city from the bad boy of politics. I want to thank you.
Okay, so let's... Oh, that fly. Try to kill that thing. I missed him. So let's talk about what you just saw. So you just saw that P-Diddy, who is a rapper, not a rapper, gum rapper, but a rapper, which, if you understand rap, is basically originates with code from gangs and what they do or are doing or are going to do around their area, around what they do, and also where they're going and what's going on between them in the gangs and other gangs. This is code so that they can't necessarily get followed, and at the same time they make a killing of money off of it because unsuspecting young people and older people alike listen to this crap, and not just listen to it, but pay for it. Remember all the controversy about the cop killing in the rapper, in the music, so-called music? That was code for what they were going to do. And so when Natalie is reading this stuff and talking about what in the world is going on, P-Diddy is a gangbanger, and that's what he's rapping. Come on now. And now you've got the mayor saying the bad daddy of rap is getting a key from the bad daddy of politics. How far does this garbage go? Is question number 2. How far does this garbage go?
Thank y'all for this honor and just recognizing me, being from New York, giving me the key to the city. Diddy finally has the key to the city.
Today's event coincides with the release of his new album, The Love Album, Off the Grid.
Okay. I wonder if that key works on jail cells. They might want to make sure that's not the case. That age.
Well, you know what? If I was the mayor, I wouldn't give P. Diddy squat except for the key to the cage and then throw it away when I locked him up. But you know what? I'm not a mayor. I'm not a mayor of a city. I don't have a key to a city. And the other thing, just pointing it out, is that when he come out with the Love album and then change his name to Sean Love Combs, he used to be Puff Daddy, and then he went to Diddy, P. Diddy, and Diddy. It was because somebody in the UK sued him for taking the dude's name, and so it was some guy named Love that recommended he change it to thus and such and this and that. So P. Diddy created an album and changed his name in honor of that guy. I just read that today.
Aged fast and rotten, didn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, on to the major piece of this. Who helped him? Because obviously you need a staff to hold freak-offs and to get people in there and to clean it up and give you all your props. Well, the government says he did have a lot of help from people both known and unknown, they say, participating in unlawful and other activities related to his affair. Now, no one else is named in this indictment, not his sons, not his bodyguard, or anyone yet. But they say they're just getting started. But we can put some things together based on other cases against Combs, most famously the Lil Rod case, Rodney Jones' lawsuit against P. Diddy. Now, his bodyguard, Fahim Muhammad, is referred to many times in that case, which is still ongoing. He was the head of Combs' security, and he was known as his fixer because he had connections within law enforcement. What they said is if someone got killed, if someone got abused, if someone got hurt, if someone got in any trouble, Mr. Muhammad could fix it, they say, because he had the power to disappear people and problems. Well, who was this Mr. Muhammad? Ian Carroll, friend of the show, has been looking into this for months, and here's how he describes this.
One of the ways that Diddy had law enforcement under control was through his chief of security, Fahim Muhammad, who the whole staff was allegedly told to contact if anything ever went wrong with police or law enforcement, and he would be the fixer that would make it all disappear. Well, Fahim Muhammad is the former head of security for Michael Jackson. This kid had just...
Okay, so the net broadens, and this actual aspect leads us into the next question, and that is the timing of this thing. Why did they decide to arrest P. Diddy, who Diddy Dat, right now? Because as you heard for yourself, they had means to disappear people because of their connections into law enforcement. And that brings me to, I think it is the third question, which is the timing. And what in the thunder is the federal government and the locals trying to cover up on their end? That's the question that needs to be asked. And we're going to get into that because I think I know. And just so we're clear, there is a whole lot of this in this case that smells just like Jeffrey Epstein. I've been alluding to it from the moment I pushed the record button and the broadcast button. And I'm telling you straight up, if you look at the evidence, if you look at what's going on and you hear who's come in and who the list is of party goers and who's been rubbing shoulders with Diddy Daddy, this sounds an awful lot like Epstein. And what was Epstein? Epstein was an operative who was engaged in sexual perversion and demonic sacrifices for the sake of pulling wicked people into the net to blackmail them for global and local, that is national, nefarious reasons. And that is why you will never see the list of Epstein's goers. And I will tell you right now, you're not going to see the full list of the goers of old little Diddy Daddy's parties either. Because this list that goes into his parties is going to go a long, long ways. It's going to be a lot of people you and I know the names of. It is. It's coming. It's coming. It is coming. I'm telling you. Whoever they are giving to you on a silver platter right now is a scapegoat and a cover-up, and whoever shows up on his list will simply be a distraction. And the sacrificial of low-hanging fruit. It's the way it's been working. That's the way it's always been working. And let me tell you something else right now. I'm going to get into this with the Donald Trump debacle. But all you people that want to go, oh, he's just an artist, leave him alone. You are in your standards of morality, your compass is in question. And I am not saying that I sit on the throne to judge you, but I am called to be discerning, just like when I cross the road. You look both ways. You don't just step out like a bunch of Walmart stupid lunkheads who just walk out in front of cars. Oh, they got to stop. You look both ways. You make a judgment. I can either walk across the road or I need to sit tight until it's safe. Or I want an apple, but you don't judge about it. You just pick up an onion. No, I'm going to discern that I want an apple. I'm picking up an apple. I'm not eating an onion, or vice versa. So you can take your misunderstandings and your little twisting of what judge means all you want to, but I'm not the one that's going to buy it because I know better. You are known by your fruit, and it is simple as that. You don't like it? Change your roots. Let's get back to it.
Just graduated college with like a business degree, and he became the head of security for the King of Pop at age 21 or 22. And then, whoopsies, that same year, head of Pop died. This guy was second on the scene. And then his very next job after failing was to become the head of Diddy's entire operation. Think about it. The head of security in a blackmail ring needs to know all the dirt. Otherwise, he's not securing shit. Diddy formed his record label in the first place with a lot of help, basically being selected by Clive Davis, who's got a lot of mob ties and other stuff in his history. But he's been running huge portions of the music industry before we were all born. We're talking back to signing names originally like Janis Joplin, Pink Floyd, Aerosmith, Earth, Wind, and Fire. I say all of that to just show you the scope that this is not just one rapper doing bad things. This is the whole music industry. This is how it runs. Diddy is not an isolated incident. He is the status quo. And chances are he was not the only blackmail ring operating in the music industry.
You guys. Okay.
And there's a lot to dig into with Fahim as well.
Let's just go a little bit deeper, right? Because actually in Carol's work on Fahim Muhammad, we're going to talk about that more, is how I became aware of his work, because his connection to Michael Jackson, which he lays out in this video. I just want to show it to you. Screenshot this and watch it later because it's wild. This was published in March, and it raises more questions than we have answers to. Makes me want to apologize to Michael Jackson for believing smear campaigns about him. Now, more about this Mr. Muhammad. Diddy himself shared this last year. Mr. Muhammad bought land for his son on the southern border, right next to the border wall. Why? Because that's a good place to get people to participate in your freak-outs. Freak-offs, right. Presumably, right? We don't know. Now, here was a local CBS station in San Diego covering it last year. Now, keep in mind, what they're saying is Diddy told us that this guy on his staff bought this southern borderland, and they're like, let's go take a look. Watch how this video ages, which is still live on the CBS station. Watch. We're going to watch it in its entirety.
40 acres of land in San Diego County. That's what one dad gave his son for his 13th birthday.
He posted about it on social media, and their story went viral. Rapper Sean Combs even posted about it. CBS 8's Anna Laurel went to Boulevard, that's about an hour east of our newsroom, to see what they're going to do with all that land.
We're not just out here in the middle of nowhere. Look how close we are to the border wall with Mexico. Now, when we were driving out here, all I saw were a bunch of boulders and a few trees. But when Fahim Muhammad came out here, all he saw was potential.
We see clear space that we uninterruptedly we can enjoy nature.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Uninterrupted.
Growing up in the city.
Yeah, they're going to share the love like Daddy Obama's talking about. Spread that love. Spread the wealth. Let's keep it rolling.
Just a city like LA, when we're out
All
here,
that.
I mean, it's totally different.
Fahim Muhammad bought 198 acres out here in Boulevard to get away.
It's real quiet.
The border wall is right behind them, you guys. The border wall.
He lives in Los Angeles and runs a real estate business that buys and rebuilds properties in the south side of Chicago. He says to create a better living situation for the black community there.
Based on what's happening with this renovation right now.
His company, Oasis Investment Group, even teaches people home ownership.
Yeah, it's all in who you know, people. It's all in who, well, it's in who they know. Very important.
Fahim says his mom taught he and his siblings how important it is to own your own property and to help their community. So when his son Fahim recently turned 13, he gave him 40 acres.
I thought it would be a great opportunity to teach him a life lesson about the value of land.
And they're teaching other kids from LA these lessons too.
So all them regular rocks you picked?
They bring inner city kids out here to hike, ride ATVs, and build campfires. You can tell how much their family loves it when I ask them what it's like out here at night.
Amazing. It was fun. You get full view of the stars. It's like,
because like there's no city lights out here, so you get to no pollution, stuff like that. So you get to see like clear sky. You can see all the stars and stuff. Yeah, it was fun.
13-year-old Fahim has some ideas for his property.
You could build like ATVs like around like, the whole thing. It's like once you build a zip line from the mountain.
And even though they're right beside the border wall, they've had no problems. Out here, these city kids enjoy
No
their
problems.
own private
getting victims.
You got fresh water, you got clear skies. At night, you can see all of the stars, the moon, the sunrise is beautiful.
In Boulevard, this is Anna Laurel for CBS 8.
Okay.
I spoke to former 24-year veteran of the Customs and Border Protection who was stationed right there. Okay, and JJ Carroll told me today. He said no one lives in Boulevard except longtime border residents and people wanting to be criminals. He said, "Quote." Would you ever buy your son land on our border? Crime, violence, rapes, murders, drug cartels, human smuggling cartels, all day, all night on your property.
No, not unless you like those things.
Right, unless that's part of your business plan.
Right.
Right?
I don't think
really
so.
hate your kid.
Right. You want a timeshare in Boulevard, California, right on the border wall, where cartels are bringing kids across right there for you? I mean, it's a perfect opportunity. Buy up the land.
Now, that video is still live on CBS 8's YouTube page. I feel like I could show it to you. I should show you the landing page in case you want to find it yourself, because they presumably have not realized what they have there as a feel-good news piece is probably evidence of human trafficking. If they were good reporters, they would know that the man they just featured here is named in the Lil Rod lawsuit for being Diddy's fixer in a sex ring. So maybe they should at least put some kind of note on that video or follow it up. I left a comment
I'm
there.
glad it's still there.
Alerting them to it.
Most of the time, these news organizations try to hide the fact and they delete it and get rid of it.
Oh,
so,
I downloaded it. So
we have
there
it.
we
We
go.
have it saved yet.
Okay, so what we're dealing with here is deep and extensive and an old conspiracy, not a theory, a real conspiracy to sell your soul to the devil to become famous in the music industry. And who else is connected? Well, Lil Rod's lawsuit names Cuba Gooding Jr. as an active participant in the freak off parties. Yeah, it also mentions Usher. We also know that Combs has produced other big acts such as Mary J. Blige, Lil Kim, Biggie Smalls. We know that he dated Jennifer Lopez. Maybe that's why she's so keen to get her divorce in the headlines right now, to sort of divert from the fact that she was associated with him over 20 years ago. Now, Lucian Grange and Universal Music were originally named in the Lil Rod lawsuit, but they were removed as defendants, and the government in the federal indictment does not mention them. But Prosecutor Williams does say that the government is not done here. In fact, he makes it seem as though they are just getting started. So perhaps they will. The government says they have enough here to keep Combs behind bars for a lifetime. They're asking him to forfeit pretty much all of his possessions. The big question here is, how deep will this go, and will Combs live to tell? Will he live to name names? Since he is essentially the Epstein of the music industry, will we ever get a client list? Or will that, like the Epstein list that is buried with him, fizzle out and die? Now, my sort of silver lining here is that maybe this is the government trying to make it right. Maybe if we can find a connection between Epstein and Combs, which it seems like won't be too hard to find, then we get it all. Maybe the bad guys sort of took it from the good guys.
Nope. None of that is getting out. They will take Twin Towers down to cover this stuff up. I'm going to tell you right now, they will take the Twin Towers down to cover this stuff up. You understand what I'm saying? Let me see if I can find the next clip, because that's going to explain a whole lot more. But I'm telling you, stuff's going to get uncovered just so it can get buried. That's what's going to happen. Now, let's get into what I've been talking about. Let me see if I can pull this up. Let's see what we got going on.
The government is the largest purveyor and
Start it over. Okay.
Well, how many of you watching right now realize that the United States government is the largest purveyor and coordinator of sex trafficking of children in the world? Yes, the United.
What did he just say? What did he just say? The United States government is the largest purveyor of child sex trafficking in the world. They have surpassed the Sandbox, and they've surpassed the Russians, and they've surpassed the Czechs. Oh, where are we going with this? Where are we going with this? I'm telling you.
The United States government, the largest facilitator of child trafficking in the world. It should make all of us sick. And yet the mainstream media, the corporate media, largely ignores the story almost entirely. And
Why? Because either they're in bed with the government, they're a part of it, they're being run by it, they're fellow bedbugs, and the leaders are involved in all of it. I'm telling you.
Only a handful of independent journalists even cover the story. You ought to ask the question, why? Why? I mean, we cover the story here on the show, and often when we do, we get demonetized, we get blocked, and our programs get taken down. Who is running the show? Why is this allowed to happen, and why is no one talking about it? Well, our next guest is one of the only ones talking about this. That's J.J. Carroll, former Customs and Border Protection agent for 24 years, putting together a brand new documentary on this very issue. You can find out more about this by going to thisistreason.com, and we'll have it linked up in the description below. And he's been doing amazing work on this, and JJ is back on the show. JJ, welcome back. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, and thanks for having me on a topic that I know that is dirty, and is dirty because it's evil. And you said something that's powerful, and it's true, and I know how it sounds when I'm watching you say it back to me. It makes me go, oh gosh. The United States government is the largest purveyor in child sex trafficking in modern history. And that's true. And I know it's uncomfortable for Americans to hear, but the evidence is damning, and it's literally right in front of your face. And you're right, no one's covering it.
Okay, so let me say this right now. I literally said about 20 to 30 minutes ago that if you are backing the people that do this, aka your votes, and aka your memes, and you are simply saying that you're being judged when you're being called out on it, it really begs the question as to why you would even want to be associated with this stuff. And I'm telling you, these guys are not lying. They're not lying. Back in the 80s, we had the Iran-Contra. And the only thing that came out of that was drugs and guns. You think that was the only thing they had going on? If you think, listen, we had people I know going down into Panama and Honduras off the record. And they didn't go down there to secure coffee beans. And they didn't just go down there for the guns and the AliExpress. This stuff's been going on for bloody ever. And people I know will sit here and still shove this down the Americans' throat. I'm talking about people, your neighbors. What is wrong with you? You have, I don't understand. How can you smile and say, have a good day, and be a party line backer? I don't get it. Let's continue.
It's really disturbing. I mean, today of all days, today's June 6th, when we're doing this interview here. This is the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And you think about the ideal of America. You think of what those men died for on the beaches of Normandy, the ideal of freedom, the ideal of justice, the ideal of the United States Constitution. For these individuals to hear that their United States government is the largest, dirtiest facilitator of child trafficking in the world just must make them absolutely
sick. I'll say it for them, sick. Why did we sign our line on the empty check when we have people in high places, dark people in high places not only selling out the country on both sides of the aisle, let's make no mistake about it. Lindsey Graham come to mind, and all of his little purveyor and shills. He might as well be a part of the Communist Party. Why did we sign? Listen, I got friends who went places and lost a lot of people. I served. We have 2 sons that served. Why? And yet, a lot of y'all don't give a rip. A lot of y'all have sons and daughters that serve too. And I'm telling you, you know what? The bottom line is that you serve for a number of reasons. And maybe you serve because you're a communist and you just want the communist edge to tip. Anyways, this stuff here should boil your blood. This stuff, let me tell you something. You don't touch a kid. You just don't. But anyways.
Sad to their core, those who are left alive, to think about it. I mean, it sickens me as an American citizen to think about this. And before we get into the details, what you've just uncovered, because we're going to show our audience here what you've just uncovered over the past few weeks as part of this new documentary. Why do you think there is no discussion about this? Why do you think the mainstream corporate media ignores this story? Why do you think even independent journalists, some of our contemporaries, ignore this story completely? Is it because they've sort of compartmentalized part of this story? They can cover the illegal immigration at the border. Fox News can cover that as much as they want. But then when it comes to this piece of the story, they ignore it. Why do you think that is?
I think that's part of the machine where they don't want to show the Biden administration a bad light in any way. I think they're complicit. And I also think it's so dirty. When you start talking about women being raped, men murdering each other, all that atrocities, those are horrible. But when you start talking, at least for me, when you start talking about the sexual brutalization, trafficking children across state lines, it's so dirty. It makes people so uneasy and so uncomfortable that nobody wants to talk about it. No.
Oh, except for you missed something. You said they're complicit, and that's true. And when they talk about the illegal immigration, they never call it illegal. Let's make sure we hit that point. They never call it illegal because if they admit that it's illegal, then they admit there's a constitution and they're failing in their treasonous acts. And they have to admit that we are a sovereign nation with a border. And you come in legally to become a citizen. They have to admit all of it, and they won't. So they won't call it illegal immigration. So, Clayton, I understand what you're saying, but you said it wrong because they won't admit that it's illegal. And it is illegal. It's illegal to the core. And what they're doing with our borders is, in fact, treason. And I'm going to get into the result of treason in the Trump debacle video. Because they keep saying, and we'll get into this, but they keep blaming some people for some things when they're doing exactly what they're blaming the other people for doing, but nothing ever happens to them. But let's get back into this because I'm about ready to jump into the other video.
Look, I as law enforcement of 24 years. I come back from these trips on filming, but this one took me a couple days just to decompress because what I'm seeing, the enormity, the scale at what our government has created. There's almost 150 to 200 of these child sex trafficking detention facilities in Texas. There's almost 400 across the nation. So there's an infrastructure built. And I'm talking facilities that hold tens of children and facilities that hold thousands of children. I mean, when you look at the enormity, the numbers, 140,000 unaccompanied alien children, those are children that cross the border as young as infants to 17 years old. Just last year, we're on pace to hit that number again this year or surpass it, because we still have another 5-6 months of data that goes into 2024.
Okay, so you do realize what he just said. 400 facilities that are run by Immigration and Homeland Security. So the question is, P-Diddy is another Epstein. They took Epstein out. Why? Why did they take Epstein out? And number two, why are they bringing P-Diddy down? Are you listening? Are you listening?
This problem is so enormous. It is so sick and perverse that it sometimes, I really believe America just doesn't want to know. But I'm not going to, we talked about this before. I'm not going to sit back and worry about getting demonetized.
I'm going to tell you why America doesn't want to know. Because if you do know, then you have to either clean up your own house, admit guilt, clean up your own house, and demand better leadership. But if you don't demand better leadership, then you can continue doing what you want to do. And it's sickening. I'm telling you, it is way, way more prevalent than what any of us understand or realize. Way, way, way more prevalent. Down to the neighborhood level. That's why. Open your eyes. Open your eyes.
Or hurt or called vile names. This is happening. Look, I'm not looking at facilities and going, well, I surmise this is happening. No, I'm looking at data and I'm talking to people that worked inside these facilities for years, and they're telling me firsthand, JG, this is what's happening. It's grotesque.
So let's talk about some of the facilities you visited. So you mentioned 400 across the United States, 400 different facilities, and they range in size. You mentioned tens to thousands of children. A couple of months ago here on the show, we broke the story and showed one of these former Walmart facilities where thousands of children were being trafficked through. The individual who broke the story then had threats against his life for sharing this information. They don't want this information out there. And so when you went to Texas, you went to these different locations. Talk about the facilities, talk about the people that you interviewed, and what did they tell you?
Well, I went when.
So before he gives his account, I'm going to tell you that if you remember back in 2015, when the Walmarts from Florida to Arizona were going down and all of them had the same plumbing problems, and I've mentioned this before, they supposedly all had the same plumbing problems, but, you know, it was all conspiracy. But I'm going to tell you it wasn't conspiracy because I know people that took pictures who worked in these tunnels in these Walmarts. So just so you know, it's not a conspiracy. Not a conspiracy at all. Oh, what just happened? I just hit the wrong thing here. Hang on. It's throwing a ad at me. Here we go.
In an industrial area, it probably held tens, if not 100, but they had like 7, 8, 10 vans, white vans. They all used the white vans. But the two that struck me that were just unbelievable. One was in Carrizo Springs, Texas. So if you're driving the Texas border in this desolate town of about, they say 5,000 or less than 5,000, I think they're counting cows and cattle. There's not 5,000 people living. There's one gas station. And if I didn't have someone taking me to Carrizo Springs Child Detention Facility, I would drive right by it. It's a dirt road. You get off the paved road, you go on a dirt road, and you go about a half a mile north, and all of a sudden, there's this giant, it looks like a FEMA camp in one of the Hollywood movies. There's guard shacks, there's razor wire, there's parking lot for 600 cars. I can't tell you the depth of it because I can't get anywhere near it, like drive in to see the depth. I can tell you the width of it. It was shocking. I could not believe it. And it was hidden. No, they hid it in a place where there's no one that can work there. There's no one to employ. They're hiding it. And then I go down to, I drive 7 hours down to Brownsville to look at, if you think of the largest Walmart you can imagine, it was a super mega Walmart that they bought, Southwest Keys Partners or Program, they changed their name, built or bought. It's about anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 children. Look, this was in plain sight. There was McDonald's, there was a Church's Chicken, there was gas stations. People were just going about life, had no idea that's there. How do they not know that it's not there? Well, because there's a guard shack. You can't drive in without an ID.
Okay, he is not the only documentary journalist that has said exactly the same thing. So the question is that, again, why aren't we being told, or why are we not paying attention? Why are we not paying attention? That's the question, because he's not the only one saying this. I just want you to know that he is not the only one saying this.
Close to the perimeter, which was basically the parking lot of the gas station that doesn't belong to the detention facility. I'm talking about just regular Americana. All of a sudden, there were golf carts with security guards everywhere.
And why is Walmart involved in this? Why is Walmart complicit in giving up real estate space for this? That's the question. Or that's another question.
And my question immediately, out of nowhere, all of a sudden,
out of nowhere.
Yeah, they're there and they're making sure we don't cross into the parking lot. And my first instinct was, as a law enforcement guy, what the hell are you hiding back there? What's going on behind those closed doors? And I asked one of my guys, and I said, that been in there, I said, explain to me what the hell's going on in there. And he goes, he said, it's just terrible. And I said, okay, well, what's terrible? And he goes, I said, okay, let's break it down. Is there child molestations and rapes going on in these facilities? And he goes on to proceed to tell me yes, but for about 15 to 20 seconds of trying to explain what it is, he finally stops and says, I'm not talking about this. It takes me a long time to get over this, and it's a horrible thought in my brain and my mind. I don't want to talk about it anymore. And I said, okay.
And this is why, this is why people don't want to talk about it. This is why the mainstream media will do wall-to-wall coverage of people pouring across the southern border, violent criminals, MS-13 gangs, etc. But they won't cover this part of the story because it's incredibly difficult. But it's now, because no one's talking about it, we've become the largest purveyor of it in the world.
Yes.
So sexual molestation, all sorts of awful behavior. When these kids are at these facilities, so some people, Democrats would say, oh, see, that's good-hearted. That's great. This is like stuff that Obama built. Like, these are places to hold these children. But what's actually happening? Where are these children then being taken?
Well, that's a great question. I asked my source, and I knew from other people I spoke to, they have no idea. They're taking them all over the nation, dropping them off. Listen, he told me this. He goes, listen, we had a problem for a while, and it's still continuing, because he was explaining to me what it looked like under Donald Trump. Under Donald Trump, we didn't have any of this mass children. He said.
So nobody knows where any of these children are going. I will tell you right now that I know in different areas where some of these are going. If you talk to your friends and your relatives across the country, and you talk to yours and I talk to mine, it doesn't take us long to put dots together and to figure out where these people are heading, where these children are going. It really doesn't. And so you need to just keep your head to the ground, your ears to the ground, and your eyes open. And at some point, you'll figure it out. You'll understand. You'll see it. And so the point of the matter is, in reality, in reality, man, my audio is all messed up. In reality, this is not rocket science. I keep talking about connecting the dots. And shortly here, I've got one more clip I want to share with you to concrete. The last question is, why are they bringing this out now? And so just stick with me and I'll get to it real soon.
So it was very structured, very organized, very regulated. Everyone knew where everyone was going and there was a reason for everything. He said, under Biden, no one knows. It's absolute, utter chaos. And I said, okay, but give me an example. He goes, we were delivering children to the wrong people. And those people were not saying anything to us. So imagine this. I'm a Mexican family. I want my 10-year-old son delivered to me in Vermont. I fly to Vermont to give him a 10-year-old son, but it's not a 10-year-old son. It's a 3-year-old girl from Nigeria. And I take her. And then the Nigerian family gets a 10-year-old Mexican boy. If you believe that, you're a moron. What that is that you are taking these children and giving them to sex traffickers. They don't care. They ordered a boy or a Mexican boy, and this one ordered a Nigerian girl. At the end of the day, they don't care. They have a product now they can push out and pimp. You don't want to hear that, and when people, it's true.
And when people are watching, they're saying, why would they do this? Well, what people don't understand is you always have to follow the money, right? Did your sources talk to you about the money? I mean, this is a massively profitable, right? Multi-billion-dollar a year industry. The cost of a child for these people, these perverts to use can be upwards of $30,000 or even more, right? They're paying them for this. And as President Trump said in that Fox and Friends interview, most of these children end up dead.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that Fox interview. I had to rewind it twice because at first he kind of said it and was over-talked. Then he said it again. I was like, wait a minute, let me get this, make sure I have this in the context, because when I report on it. So Fox and Friends was giving Donald Trump the numbers, 137, 140,000 unaccompanied alien children last year. This year's at almost 50,000. It's going up. And Donald Trump said, yeah, a lot of them are dead. And then he said it again. He goes, yes, a lot of them are already dead. So I have to assume that man is getting briefed on intelligence and data that I am not privy to. So, but again, so we're talking about child sex trafficking, and then a lot. What is a lot? A lot of them are dead. What in the hell is going on, Clayton?
Yeah, well, you can visit the Epstein files to figure that one out. As simple as that. Satanic ritual would be one thing, and getting rid of evidence would be another. Pure and simple. So from there, let's go ahead and get into another video, because this is getting drawn out. I want to share with you something that hit the radar not too long ago, and something that you need to hear.
Hello, everyone.
To finish,
I'm Assistant Chief Sean Taylor with the Millersville Police Department in Middle Tennessee. Many of you may have seen my video last week regarding the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation raiding our police department and my personal residence. They came and they seized evidence regarding corruption that we had locally that tied into corruption nationally, and they took all of our files so that we are unable to complete these cases. The cases that we've been working on affect every American.
Yes, they do.
They affect us in the mortgages, fraudulent mortgages,
yes, they
human
do.
trafficking,
Yes,
narcotics
they do.
trafficking,
Yes, they do.
and many other crimes.
Yes, they do.
We have crisscrossed the United States talking to state attorney generals, senators, congresspeople, and numerous law enforcement officials throughout the United States. We've identified a major corruption that's transnational. It involves the BRICS nations and China and investment companies and fraudulent mortgages on homes here in the United States in very key counties and key states. It goes into the election integrity and fraud and is creating a geopolitical shift within our political system. This is a multifaceted attack from a foreign adversary who is paying off our local municipal, county, state, and federal politicians to keep from coming to light.
Hold on one second. Like I said, I'm going to be getting into the Trump assassination stuff, the debacle, and the whole 9 yards. And what is coming out? They're saying that the whole Trump assassin thing is tied to foreign players. Now listen to what he's saying about all of it. Fraudulent mortgages, fraudulent voting, fraudulent everything, and sex trafficking, child sex trafficking. This guy in a little bitty town in Millersville, Tennessee, is being attacked by the FBI. And he's being painted as a nut job and a conspiracist, and he is uncovering this stuff. Now, why do you think they're putting P-Diddy on the stand right now? Why do you think they're pulling him? Why did they take Epstein and throw him in prison? When and why? And P-Diddy, why now? Right here, listen to this. Right here.
We are moving forward with this case in other states and other arenas, even though they have taken our files and our information.
And don't think P. Diddy's not a player in this. But as of right now, he's just who you see because he is the sacrificial scapegoat.
This is very important to us. When I say us, I mean we the people.
This guy, I like this guy.
It's time that we the people come together.
Yes.
It's time that we stop allowing ourselves to be segregated by our own government.
Yes.
No matter what race you are, what creed, or what religion you are Americans. We need to stand together as Americans and demand accountability of our elected officials. It's time for this corruption to stop and for us to have our country back so that we know we leave it in the good hands to our children, our grandchildren, because if we don't stand up and do this, we will no longer have a country to hand over to them. I'd like to send a special...
I would like to say that's their goal. That's their goal. And you people here that I know that back them up, got to be your goal too. You can't claim everybody else is blind, and this is what you support. Unfriend me. I don't care. It's the truth. It is the truth. And there's a whole lot more where this is coming from.
Thanks out to Mark Fincham. He wrote a very good article that all of you can go and read at yournews.com regarding the information that I'm talking about tonight. One of the things that happened that really upsets me that the TBI did at my residence was they urinated in my bathtub and tracked urine throughout my home. To me, that was the government saying, piss on you, America.
Yes.
And that's not okay.
No.
It's time to stand up, unify, come together peacefully, and demand accountability. Thank you very much.
If that man loses his job, I hope my community picks him up. That's the kind of law enforcement we need. I know we've got them. But they feel outnumbered. I know for a fact we got them. I'm friends with some of them. They know what I'm saying is right. And I've been right more than I've been wrong. But if this police officer loses his job, I hope my community picks him up. Now, let's get back to the question at hand. Why now? Why P. Diddy? Why now? Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand? Do you understand? Do you understand that P. Diddy is just what they want you to see? I'm not saying he's not guilty, because that little nasty river runs deep. It runs Epstein deep. But who is Epstein tied to? This guy right here told you that this is multinational, goes into the BRICS, that is Brazil, India, and whoever else. It goes through the U.S. We've been shown that the U.S. is the premier child traffickers of the globe. And the question is, why P. Diddy now? I think you know. You are welcome. If that question was not answered for you tonight, and you think I'm off my rocker, then you certainly don't even care to pay attention. You really do not. And the truth really does not matter. And I don't care if you're blue or red. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to tell you. You can sugarcoat a turd blue and you can sugarcoat a turd red and feed it as candy. And at the end of the day, whoever partakes of it is going to have nasty, stinky breath. But I think you know the answer to the question, or questions, is P. Diddy guilty? And why now? After all this time, why now? I think you know. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for sticking with me. And I just have a couple of housekeeping items for you. I really would appreciate it if you valued this video at all, and you're on YouTube or Rumble, that you will like and subscribe. And I don't know why I cannot move my junk around. Come on. But at the same time, if you appreciate it, I also ask that you visit my Etsy store, Etsy.com/Timotheus, and check that store out and take a look at all of my products around my landscape photography as of right now, and maybe you like some of that. In any case, thank you once again for joining me, and good night. I will see you on the next video.